If you are anything like me, you probably spend an inordinate amount of time staring down at your phone
Go, absolutely.
or your laptop or, some terrible combination of the two. And the inevitable result of that is that infamous tech neck.
Yeah, that constant strain.
Right. Your shoulders start to feel like they are literally made of hardened concrete. And if you are being honest, your go-to medical intervention is usually just digging a bag of frozen peas out of the back of the freezer,
A classic remedy.
tossing it on your neck, and just hoping for the best. But what if the answer to that hypermodern ailment actually dates back thousands of years? Welcome to the Deep Dive Lab.
It is great to be here for this.
In this deep dive, our mission is to explore a fascinating stack of research papers. And these papers are building this really robust, data-driven bridge between ancient traditional Chinese medicine, specifically practices like Gua Sha and acupuncture, and the absolute cutting edge of modern biomedical science.
And it is a wild ride.
It really is. So if you have ever been scrolling online, seen those viral facial sculpting stones or the acupuncture needles, and found yourself wondering if they actually do anything at a cellular level, you are in the right place today.
Yeah, it is such a fascinating intersection of disciplines. Because what we are really examining today is a movement that researchers are increasingly referring to as scientific multiculturalism.
Scientific multiculturalism, I like that.
That's a great term. There is a brilliant 2025 paper by A. Kadir and a team of researchers, and it was published in the journal Frontiers in Pharmacology. And they pair that alongside this extensive work by Meng Zhang in the International Journal of Molecular Sciences.
Okay.
And together, they really lay the philosophical and the scientific groundwork for this whole concept. They discuss how modern biomedical science is no longer just dismissing traditional practices outright.
Right, they aren't just writing it off as folklore anymore.
Exactly. Instead, researchers are actively seeking to investigate these Eastern practices using our most advanced, sophisticated Western tools.
I love the way Kadir's paper frames that. To use a pop culture analogy, it feels like a massive cinematic crossover event.
Oh, for sure.
Imagine Marvel meets Star Wars, but instead of, the Avengers teaming up with Jedi, you have ancient 2,000-year-old medical wisdom finally meeting double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled trials.
That is a perfect way to visualize it. And it isn't just theoretical either. The ultimate proof of this crossover's potential is the story of Tu Youyou.
Oh, wow, yes.
Yeah, Tu Youyou is the perfect anchor for this entire concept. She actually won the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine back in 2015.
Right, for artemisinin.
Exactly, for discovering artemisinin, which remains to this day one of the most effective malaria treatments in the entire world. But what is vital to understand here is that she didn't find this compound by just randomly screening synthetic chemicals in some modern lab.
She looked backwards.
She did. She found it by meticulously scouring ancient traditional Chinese medical texts. Specifically, a handbook by an alchemist named Ge Hong from the 4th century.
The 4th century? That is incredible.
Right. She read his precise instructions on how to prepare a specific herb-sweet wormwood, and the text said to use a cold extraction method rather than boiling it.
Because boiling it would have destroyed the active compound, right?
Exactly. The heat would have ruined it. It proved that there is hard, undeniable biochemical science hiding inside these traditional texts, just waiting for modern methodologies to extract it.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit, starting with Gua Sha. For anyone who isn't familiar with the mechanics of it, Gua Sha is essentially a press stroke treatment of the skin. A practitioner uses a smooth-edged tool, often made of a dense material like jade or rose quartz or sometimes even animal horn, and they scrape it across the skin in a very specific, deliberate, unidirectional way.
A very targeted physical friction.
Right. And this intentional friction causes minor microbruising right beneath the surface, which the medical community calls petechiae. Visually, it can look a bit intense, almost like a rash, but it is fundamentally a mechanical stimulation of the dermal and subdermal tissue. Now, a skeptical mind might look at that and think, well, I am just rubbing my skin with a rock. What is that really doing to my internal biology?
And that is the exact right question to ask.
Right. Well, here is where it gets really interesting. The biochemical response is far more complex than just surface-level irritation.
It is profound. And we actually have the imaging to prove it now.
Yeah.
There's this landmark study conducted by Jeffrey Young from Brigham and Women's Hospital and Harvard Medical School.
Okay.
And he was working alongside Brad Kuo from Massachusetts General Hospital. They wanted to see exactly what Gua Sha does at a systemic level. They wanted to move way beyond just subjective feelings of relief.
How do you measure that, though?
Well, they used a group of transgenic mice.
Okay, wait. Transgenic mice?
Yeah, these are mice that have been genetically modified so that a very specific enzyme in their bodies emits light. It bioluminesces whenever it is activated.
So they engineered glowing mice to test an ancient scraping technique.
They absolutely did.
That alone highlights the incredible lengths modern science is going to just to understand these mechanisms.
It is wild, but it is a highly effective way to visualize internal biochemistry in real time. So they performed the traditional Gua Sha procedure on these mice,
Okay.
and then they placed them under a specialized bioluminescence imaging scanner. And over the course of the next 120 hours, the mice glowed vividly on the monitor.
Because of the scraping.
Yes. The mechanical friction on the surface of their skin triggered a massive systemic upregulation of an enzyme called Heme Oxygenase-1, or HO1.
Okay, now for you listening at home, HO1 might sound like just another random string of letters and numbers.
Yeah.
But think of it as your body's elite cellular cleanup crew.
That is a great analogy.
If you've seen the Marvel movies, think of HO1 like the damage control crew.
Oh, yeah, the guys who clean up after the superheroes.
Yeah, exactly. After a massive battle where the Avengers have wrecked the city, this specialized crew comes in to clean up the toxic mess, put out the fires, and stabilize the infrastructure. That is exactly what HO1 does in your biological ecosystem.
It really is. It is a powerful antioxidant enzyme that rapidly reduces oxidative stress and acts as a massive anti-inflammatory agent.
So by simply applying this deliberate mechanical press stroke to the skin, Young and Kual proved that the body responds by deploying its most elite anti-inflammatory team.
Precisely. And the downstream effects of that HO1 deployment are where we see real, tangible clinical potential. For instance, there is a 2016 study published in the journal Petechiae by Ting Chen and her colleagues from Nanjing University.
What did they find?
They took this whole concept into the realm of immunology. They wanted to know how this Gua Sha-induced immune boost interacts with vaccines.
Wait, vaccines?
Yeah. They discovered that performing Gua Sha on the skin of mice right before administering an intradermal vaccine significantly boosted the immune system's response to that exact vaccine.
That requires a bit of an explanation. How does scraping the skin make a vaccine work better?
It acts as a physical adjuvant.
Okay.
In pharmacology, an adjuvant is a substance that you add to a vaccine to provoke a stronger immune response. When you scrape the skin, you cause local controlled inflammation.
Like a distress flare.
Exactly like a distress flare. The body immediately recruits immune cells like macrophages and dendritic cells to that specific area. So when the vaccine is injected into that exact same spot a moment later, the immune system's first responders are already there.
They are already on the scene, highly active and ready to process the vaccine antigens?
Yes. It demonstrates that this mechanical stimulation is fundamentally modulating the body's immune defenses.
Okay, so we are going to move from mice to humans now, because it is great that we can make transgenic mice glow and enhance their vaccines. But if I am sitting here with a stiff back from sitting at a desk all day, I want to know how this translates to human clinical trials.
Naturally.
What happens when we measure this in people suffering from real chronic pain?
That is where the research gets incredibly rigorous. A very recent 2025 randomized controlled trial by Bei Wang and Wichai-Ung Pinishpong from Konkane University, published in the journal Medicine, tackled this exact issue.
Okay.
And we compare their findings with the foundational 2019 study by Felix J. Saha from the University of Duisburg-Essen, which was in complementary therapies in clinical practice. Both of these research teams looked directly at patients suffering from chronic lower back pain and chronic neck pain.
The classic tech neck crowd.
Exactly. And what makes the 2025 study so innovative is their methodology. They didn't just ask patients to fill out a survey rating their pain on a scale of 1 to 10.
Right, subjective surveys only tell you so much.
They use high-resolution ultrasound imaging to physically measure the thickness and the density of the thoracolumbar fascia in the lower back. They measured it both before and after the Gua Sha treatment.
Fascia is one of those terms that gets thrown around a lot in yoga classes or by physical therapists, but it can be really hard to visualize.
It can be.
For you at home, the easiest way to understand fascia is to think about preparing a raw chicken breast.
Oh, that is a visceral image.
Right. You know that super thin, translucent, silvery film that tightly clings to the meat? That is fascia. In the human body, it is a continuous, highly innervated web of connective tissue that wraps around every single muscle, bone, and organ.
It holds everything together.
Yeah. And when you are healthy, it glides smoothly. But when your fascia gets dehydrated, thick, or bound up from poor posture, it feels like you are wearing a Spider-Man suit that shrank in the wash.
That is a highly accurate way to describe fascial restriction.
Every time you try to bend or twist, that suit pulls, it restricts your movement and it causes sharp pain.
Exactly.
Hmm?
And what Wang and Pong found using their ultrasound imaging was that Gua Sha physically alters the architecture of that tissue.
Really?
Yes. By measuring the shear wave velocity, which is a really precise way to quantify tissue stiffness, they proved that the mechanical scraping significantly reduced the hardness of the fascia.
So it physically loosened the Spider-Man suit.
It did. It measurably improved the patient's lumbar flexibility. And as a direct result of that, their visual analog pain scores dropped dramatically. The physical therapy is literally breaking up those restrictions in the connective tissue, allowing it to stretch and glide the way it was designed to.
What really impressed me about the scope of these studies is that the benefits of this mechanical stimulation aren't just limited to muscular pain and fascia. We are actually seeing hard clinical data showing it can influence the endocrine system.
The hormonal balance.
Right, the system that regulates our hormones.
What is fascinating here is how broad the systemic effects truly are. To understand that, we can look at the transition into perimenopause.
Okay.
This is a period characterized by massive, often chaotic hormonal shifts that can cause severe disruptions to a person's quality of life. We are talking hot flashes, insomnia, mood instability.
And Western medicine typically addresses this with hormone replacement therapy.
Right. But researchers wanted to see if an integrative approach could yield better results. A 2018 meta-analysis by King Ren and Zhu Zhou, published in Complementary Therapies in Clinical Practice, along with a rigorous 2017 trial by Fang Meng in the journal Menopause, investigated this specific application.
How did they set that up?
They compared a control group of patients receiving standard Western medicine for perimenopausal syndrome against a highly monitored experimental group. The experimental group received Western medicine combined with regular Gua Sha therapy.
And the researchers weren't just relying on subjective surveys about whether the patients felt fewer hot flashes, right? They actually pulled their blood to look for chemical changes.
Precisely. They took regular venous blood samples to measure the patient's actual hormonal chemistry over the course of the treatment.
And what did the blood work show?
The group that received the integrative Gua Sha therapy showed vastly superior improvements in their blood panels compared to the control group. The data showed it significantly altered and improved their circulating levels of follicle-stimulating hormone, or FSH, luteinizing hormone, LH, and their primary estrogen levels, specifically E2.
So what does this all mean for the patient? It means the therapy literally helped recalibrate their blood chemistry to ease the brutal physiological transition of perimenopause.
It is incredible.
It really forces you to respect the sheer complexity of the human body. The fact that a targeted mechanical friction on the epidermis can send signaling cascades deep enough to alter the hormonal output of the endocrine system.
It is the ultimate example of scientific multiculturalism in action. We are utilizing the diagnostic rigor of Western blood assays to validate the systemic balancing effects of an Eastern physical therapy.
It is mind-blowing. So we've seen how physical scraping changes the blood and the connective tissue. But what happens when we look at the nervous system?
That is where things get even more sci-fi.
Right. That brings us to acupuncture, specifically its application for chronic respiratory issues like asthma.
Asthma presents a fascinating challenge for medicine because it is a chronic inflammatory disease of the airways, characterized by severe hyperreactivity.
The air will just clank down.
Exactly. For decades, traditional medicine has utilized very specific acupoints to treat respiratory distress. But today, we aren't just observing the clinical outcomes from the outside. We're putting these patients into functional magnetic resonance imaging, or fMRI, machines.
To literally watch their brains react in real time.
Yes. A comprehensive 2024 review published in the Journal of Asthma and Allergy by Feishuan Wang and Luwei Jin synthesizes this emerging neuroimaging data.
The very idea of putting an asthmatic patient into an MRI tube, applying acupuncture needles, and tracking the blood flow in their brain is incredible.
It is cutting-edge stuff. The fMRI data is exactly where neuroscience intersects with the concept of traditional meridians. When researchers apply acupuncture to the specific points traditionally used for asthma, the fMRI scans capture the bold E signal changing.
The blood oxygen level dependent signal.
Right. It shows that the needles physically activate highly specific regions in the brain, most notably the anterior cingulate cortex and the insula.
Let's make sure we clearly define what those brain regions actually do. For you listening, the anterior cingulate cortex, or ACC, and the insula aren't just random patches of gray matter, they are crucial command centers.
Very crucial.
The insula processes sensory information from inside your body, like the terrifying feeling of your lungs tightening. And the ACC is heavily involved in autonomic functions like regulating your heart rate and your blood pressure.
Yes, and the emotional response.
Exactly. It processes the emotional anticipation of pain or panic. And if you are having an asthma attack, the sheer panic of not being able to breathe is a massive part of that physiological cascade.
Absolutely. By activating these specific regions, the acupuncture is actively modulating the central nervous system's response to the respiratory distress. It helps calm that panic loop.
That is amazing.
And it goes further. Wang and Jin's review aggregates cellular data showing that acupuncture physically alters the balance of immune cells in the lungs themselves. Specifically, it addresses the balance between Th1 and Th2 immune cells.
Okay, to break that down simply for our listeners, your immune system needs balance. Th1 cells are your fighters. They drive the response against viruses and bacterial infections.
Right.
Th2 cells, on the other hand, drive allergic responses and help fight parasites. Asthma is often driven by a severe imbalance where the Th2 cells become hyperactive, driving constant allergic inflammation in those airways.
That is the root of the hyperreactivity.
So what this research shows is that the acupuncture physically forces those warring cells back into a peaceful balance, directly halting the hyperreactive airway response. We are no longer guessing if it works.
Oh, the data is right there.
We can watch the brain's command centers light up on a monitor and watch the immune cells shift their behavior in the lab.
It is undeniable at this point.
Okay, so we have glowing transgenic mice revealing antioxidant enzymes. We have high-resolution ultrasound mapping fascial tissue, blood tests proving hormonal shifts, and fMRI brain scans mapping the neurology of asthma.
We have covered a lot of ground.
We really have. But I have to admit, when I first read about this next topic in our deep dive, I was a little skeptical.
Oh, the robotics.
Yes, because part of the magic of these ancient practices is the human intuition. A master practitioner feeling the specific tension in your back or knowing the exact angle needed for a needle. Can an algorithm really replicate that, or are we just building incredibly expensive, over-engineered back scratchers?
It is a totally valid concern, and it raises an important question, which is a hurdle researchers are actively trying to clear right now. How do you mathematically quantify a 2,000-year-old human touch?
It sounds impossible.
Well, a December 2022 paper by Zonghai Ma and a team of engineers tackles this problem head-on, because these therapies require incredibly well-trained professionals to administer correctly. Requiring the precise pressure, the angle, the velocity, accessibility is a huge issue.
Not everyone has access to a master practitioner.
Exactly. To solve this, Ma's team is developing what they call a smart Gua Sha device.
And they aren't just slapping a motor on a piece of jade, are they?
No, the engineering is remarkably complex. Instead of just observing the movement visually, they utilized a highly advanced signal processing method called SNF-DFA.
SNF-DFA, which stands for Stabilized Numerical Integration Based on Information Fusion and Detrended Fluctuation Analysis. Try saying that 3 times fast.
I won't even try. It is a mouthful, but the core concept is brilliant. Essentially, they attach highly sensitive kinetic sensors to the tools of expert, master-level human practitioners. As the human performs the therapy, the SNF-DFA system calculates the exact velocity, the microfluctuations in pressure, and the 3-dimensional displacement of every single stroke. It tracks the drag, the friction, everything.
Wow.
They are taking the physical, almost intuitive art of traditional healing and turning it into a raw, precise, mathematical algorithm.
So that it can teach a machine to do it.
Exactly. The ultimate goal is to use this data to train robotic or automated machines that can flawlessly replicate the exact therapeutic movements of a human expert.
I just love the visual of this. Imagine walking into a super modern clinic. You lie face down on the treatment table, and suddenly a sophisticated robotic arm, something that looks like it belongs to Iron Man or a Terminator,
Descends from the ceiling.
Yes, it descends to give you a perfectly calibrated, mathematically flawless Gua Sha treatment based on an algorithm derived from ancient texts. It is the ultimate collision of a 2,000-year-old healing tradition with 21st century robotics.
It is completely surreal.
It is simultaneously hilarious, a little intimidating, and incredibly impressive.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the stack of research we've explored today leaves us with a few vital, undeniable takeaways.
Let's summarize them.
First, the scientific community has definitively moved past the outdated idea that ancient therapies like Gua Sha and acupuncture are merely relying on the placebo effect. We have hard, observable evidence that they trigger measurable biochemical responses.
Like the deployment of the HO1 antioxidant enzyme that we visualized in those bioluminescent mice.
Precisely. Second, we have robust, peer-reviewed clinical data proving that these therapies create systemic physiological changes in humans. They demonstrably reduce the physical density of fascial tissue, they optimize reproductive hormone levels in the blood during perimenopause, and they actively shift functional connectivity in the brain's cortex to manage autonomic distress.
All proven by modern imaging and blood work.
Right. And third, the clinical demand for these biologically validated therapies is so high that the future of medicine might very well involve advanced robotic systems performing them to ensure total accessibility and mathematical precision.
For you listening, the big picture takeaway here is a profound shift in perspective. True scientific advancement does not mean we have to arrogantly discard the past, assuming our ancestors knew nothing.
Not at all.
In fact, it is the exact opposite. True advancement means taking our very best modern tools, the fMRI machines, the shear-wave ultrasounds, the glowing transgenic mice, and the advanced robotic signal processing algorithms, and using them to finally understand exactly why the old ways worked so effectively.
It is about integration.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for stepping into the Deep Dive Lab with us today. If you enjoyed this exploration of scientific multiculturalism, please make sure you subscribe to the channel so you never miss a deep dive. And share this with a friend who loves the weird intersections of history and science, or maybe just that friend who is always complaining about their tech neck.
I will leave you with a final, lingering thought to mull over today.
Okay, let's hear it.
If a simple, deliberate press stroke on the skin can literally force our cellular antioxidant defenses to light up under a modern medical scanner, what other so-called ancient superstitions are just waiting for our technology to finally catch up and prove them right?